Welcome everybody. Another episode of Ask the Pool Guy and Girl. We're here in Brighton, Michigan. It's been a while. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it has been. And
well, we do have these distractions going on.
Let's have a conversation. I don't know if
let's
you can
have a
see,
conversation.
but there's Penny.
There's Penny with one of her puppies down there. So periodically during the day today, there's probably going to be heavy breathing as they run by because the puppy, Bobby, we should introduce the world to Bobby.
Yeah, Bobby
Everyone's
Axelrod.
probably seen Penny, but Bobby Axelrod
Bobby Axelrod
needs a little intro. Although since he's being quiet, maybe we let
we'll
him be
leave
for a
him
while.
there. Check out the Facebook page. You'll see him.
Plenty.
Definitely.
So what's going on in your world?
Well, Pool Guy.
Being it's so drastically different than my world.
I know, Pool Guy. I am just happy to see that you were wearing your limited edition t-shirt today. If you have one of these t-shirts, only a handful of people in the world do. It is bound to be a collector's item. It's even on a sweatshirt.
That's me in 8th grade.
Yeah.
You should have seen the bowl my mother put on my head to cut that hair. It was a perfect bowl cut. Just right around the ears.
Did you ever think as an 8th grader that you would be as popular in the pool industry as you find yourself today?
In 8th grade, I had no idea what life would bring, which is really interesting. It's kind of a good jumping off point, is we don't know necessarily our lives and where they go. And there's a really cool commercial on TV now. It's a car commercial or something, and it says, at 5 years old, you wanted to be, or at 8 years old, you wanted to be a pilot. At such and such, you wanted to be such and such, and then you realize that your original dream was the right one or something, and they're driving a car really fast or whatever, and sort of that idea of you're piloting your own life. And I think it's kind of catchy, but it got me to thinking about what my life has been. And not many commercials will take me off on a course, most of it's just turn it off. But I've seen that commercial twice, and it's gotten me to thinking about where I was when I was 8 years old, or what's 8th grade, 13 years old, something like that, probably. Where was I at 13? Where was I at graduated from high school or even from college? And at that point, by the time I graduated from college, I was already in the pool business, which is really crazy to think about. I was just barely out of my teens when I started. And who could have predicted 8th grade? No, this guy right here. This guy right here was scared of his own shadow. That guy right there was too afraid to try anything at all. And I don't know why. Maybe upbringing, whatever it is, but I had a lot of those mental tapes going on in my head as to why I couldn't or shouldn't do certain things. What about you? So if we had a limited edition Ask the Pool Girl 8th grade t-shirt picture of you, where would you say you were then versus you are now? Because that person's still in there, right? I mean, we know that there's that essence is still there. Definitely. And those vulnerabilities, but where were you?
This is a fun question because I, this past week, was able to take one of my high school friends. She was my tennis partner when we played on the doubles on the tennis team in high school. And we were talking about kind of moving to a new place and completely starting over. And one of the things that I really enjoy in life is that kind of blank slate to invent anything that I want to be. So in middle school, I was very much a product of expectation. The way that you behave, the way that you get grades in school, the friends that you have, the interactions that you have, I was very much a product of those expectations. When I got into high school, so just after 8th grade, 9th grade, I probably started to spread my wings a little bit. And then in 10th grade, I had a big pattern interrupt. I moved and I was able to kind of reinvent myself. And I think that's a pivotal time in my life because I, on a smaller scale, got to make all of my own rules. And I didn't have that expectation swirling around in the same way. Nobody knew me. Nobody had that history with me because I was like a transplant into a different area. And it was fabulous. And I think kind of doing what we did with the pool business in a way is we kind of clean slated everything and then we just jumped off from where we were. So sometimes, I guess the lesson that I'm getting to in this is sometimes circumstance allows us that reset button, and sometimes choice gives us that reset button. So 8th grade, I wouldn't say I was scared of my own shadow, but I was a product of expectation. And then from there, I really
You started off on your own.
went
Now,
beyond
were you
that.
consciously aware of that I have this opportunity to reinvent myself, or did it just sort of come to you that all of a sudden no one knew you?
You know, at the time, I didn't understand it the way that I do now.
Right.
But I do remember very vividly in my head thinking, nobody here knows anything about me.
Mhm.
And the only things that they'll learn are what I show them or what I tell them. So I didn't understand it in the maybe psychological way that
Yeah.
I do now, but
But there
I
were some
very
physical
much
things.
recognized
Well,
it.
I certainly had a childhood where we moved several times, and the first time was 6th grade, and I was explaining in a mastermind group the other day how we have these bookmarks. Typically, they're traumas or they're bad things that sort of give us a framework that all of a sudden frozen in time is this period of time for whatever reason. It doesn't have to be that though, but very typically I think the human mind, for whatever reason, conditioning, we tend to lock into those things. But for me, in 6th grade, partway through 6th grade, I moved to another state where again, I was a little younger, but it was this whole reinventing of myself without knowing it. And it was really interesting because, again, I talked about this guy, the scared of the shadow thing. When I moved in 6th grade,
Oh,
I
pardon
was,
me for the
I was,
interruption.
oh, this is,
Oh.
we can always introduce
Okay.
Bobby because
Whew.
there he is. That's,
All right.
That's Bobby Axelrod.
Here
Say hi to
is-
the world.
Here's Bobby Axelrod. He is 10 weeks,
10 weeks,
and
one
one
day.
day old today. And he is growing by leaps and bounds. He's 20 pounds. This will be a fun bookmark because in 4 or 5 months, I think he'll be at least double
Oh,
this, if not more. So
He's
Bob,
an amazing puppy.
never thought I'd have a dog named Bob. His name is Bobby Atlas Axelrod III.
And he
And
is a
he's
good
fabulous.
boy.
Yes.
He's a good boy.
You got it.
Of course, have to talk about Bobby Axelrod, so of course Penny has to stick
Penny
her nose
the
in
pool
there,
dog.
looking for her own attention.
Yeah.
Penny, this is your
You got it.
middle child, isn't
So,
it?
fun fact, this past week, I took Bobby Axelrod, who's going to go on an adventure now. I took Bobby Axelrod and his sister, Loki, to one of our pool, or a couple of our pools, one that we're currently building, so he and Loki could play with the kids there. Then we ran up to see Pat and Gary and drop off a little something, and they just love us and are a treat and joy to be with. And then I went to our natural nautical legendary escape with the waterfall and the pizza oven and the spa. And I pulled up in the car. While we were building their pool, Penny was on the job every day. And the homeowners had given Penny a toy, which eventually got cemented back in their project, which had been
A few years
passed
later.
down
Yep.
from
It was a special toy.
one of the family
Pets or something.
pets. So
Mhm.
that was very cool. So anyway, I got there and their son was home, and he recognized me when I pulled up, and I said I brought the puppies for a visit, and he was very excited. And we went down to the pool. I wanted to grab a couple of pictures, and then Bobby and Loki splashed on the sun ledge a little bit. So I sent the parents a text as I was leaving that some unauthorized visitors were playing in their pool. And the text that I got back was very sweet, yet kind of sad because Penny only had 3 puppies. So there were not, 14 to go around. And the text back was, is one or both of those for us? Because they would absolutely adore a
They
Penny
were
puppy.
6th on the list.
Yeah.
We had 6 accounted for, plus then some others if people wanted them. But the hard 6 on the list, they were number 6.
Yeah.
And Penny had 3.
Yeah.
I know.
Maybe
Those
next
things.
time. But anyway, super just the legend of Penny the Pool Dog lives on. The legend of our legendary customers lives on. It's amazing.
Penny was fairly young then when we did their pool, and we have pictures of her sitting in the grotto while we're working on it. We have pictures of her inside their pizza oven,
Yeah.
sticking her head out of the pizza oven. So those are really pivotal times in terms of her and her establishing herself as a worker. I mean, worker in its own way, but
Yeah.
she keeps everybody happy. She helps us, reminds us when she wants to play and she interrupts you and she gets in your face, it's that she wants to play. And that's a really good reason to interrupt us, is to break us from that serious hardcoreness of what we are. But anyway, enough of the dogs. Back to what I was saying. So 6th grade for me wasn't traumatic in a bad way in terms of creating one of those bookmarks, but our family moved from Michigan to New Jersey, and I finished 6th grade, which the kids in 6th grade, the girls in particular, really thought I was cool. I have no idea why. Maybe because I was just a new face toward the end of the year, and all of a sudden I was the new kid on the block. But then we started 7th grade in a new school, and then I moved again. And because of that, most childhoods, or an awful lot of people's childhoods, you can't really remember like what between 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. It's just sort of a blur because there's no hard fact bookmark times. And for me, there's this 11-month period of time that was totally different. And it's really easy for me to recall all of the experiences happening then. In terms of, could I pick out what year happened? Like the 3 years prior, could I pick out a bunch of events in those 3 years prior? No. The 3 years after? No. But in that time, because it was that pattern interrupt, it was a bookmark, I had that. Now, that's a little bit of reinventing, understanding it, not fully understanding what that is until now, but I can say that I share those experiences that you had in 10th grade, but I was younger and really didn't understand, other than it was something brand new that I didn't understand why, and it happened. But today, so looking back on that, looking back to when I was in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 12th grade, whatever, I think for me, if I were to sum up my life in just a few words, I think one of the things I was always looking for was to create some type of an impact, a knownness, a being known for. I never had aspirations to be worldwide named something, but I always had that wanting to have created a known legacy. Now, I think about this from just a few years ago, when you probably remember me saying, and I could see it comes from a very egoic perspective, that what I want in my life is to be known as someone who's interesting, to be found interesting. Remember? That's probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, where to me the idea of being found interesting mattered. And that's coming very much from an egoic place of, I want to be known for something, which I've grown past that from an ego standpoint, and instead it's more of, or replaced by, I just want to create a legacy that's of some value. Now, it's not a monetary thing. I mean, it could be. It's not a fame thing. It could be. It's not any of that. It's more of just having walked my walk of life.
Hey, Bob, what are we doing? Stop.
And being unafraid to walk my walk of life. I think that's something that we see in people all the time. And we coach all kinds of people, and both work-related and not work-related, obviously within the company. But then we do an awful lot of other stuff where we're outreaching to people and trying to help people through things. And I really have this desire just to not be held down or overly influenced by fears and staying away from things that scare me. And I'd rather just go with those and have the adventure, because what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen in either one of our lives? Even when we go big on stuff. We had a meeting this past week. We've never talked about this yet. And his comment to us was, sometimes when you go big, remember this? Sometimes when you go big, you run the risk of losing it all, and then what are you going to do? This was a financial thing. And let's not concern ourselves with that. Let's just keep doing cool things, doing them our way, doing them whatever, and having a knowingness that what we're doing comes from a good place.
I think taking a page from Richard Branson, he went all in all the time. And most things work, some things did not work. And if things did not work, he did something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, I don't have a fear of losing anything.
Going broke
I
or
don't.
losing. We've made money and lost money, and that's just a thing.
Yeah.
But it's that whole idea of let's not build our lives in fear around, oh, if I make too aggressive of a decision. So let's bring this to the pools. I was at the pool project today, and it's a Saturday, so neighbors, there's parties going on. There's 2 houses down, there's a pool, there's a bunch of people. It quite must have been a birthday party because they had balloons and stuff. And then on the other side of us, there's a pool, and there was a small party going on. But I could hear the people 2 houses down, and it's kind of interesting being a fly on the wall, as the owner of the house was there and another guy showed up to, must have been drop his kid off for the party or whatever. I heard the word boat come up. And I just sort of perked up to listen, and I could just barely hear, because they're pretty good distance away.
So excuse Bobby Axelrod
That's
again,
okay.
but he apparently
He's just a snitcher pants.
wants to join us, so let's just join the podcast.
Why don't you just share the podcast with
There we
us?
go. Okay, so what about the boat?
So he mentions the boat, and I can see him talking to the other guy, but I can't hear it. But I clearly heard the word boat, and the guy's eyes turned to look at what we were doing. And they stared there, and they stood for, and again, it's a pretty good distance off. They're probably, I don't know, the lots are probably 150 feet wide, and they're two lots over, so it's probably, a couple hundred feet away maybe. And they chat for a while and whatever, and go in, and then go about their business and whatever. So it was kind of interesting. Well, then I caught that guy's eye a couple times, like at a distance, looking. And we're working, doing our thing, and the girls, Jesse and Karen over there today, and they're stoning the wall. So picture this boat on the side of a pool, and if anyone watched the live, Facebook Live, they would see what it is. But there's this boat that's a dry sitting area on the edge of the pool. And on the butt end of the boat is the grotto, which is going to be sort of like a stone building, which has a waterfall and an entrance and a slide coming down. It's going to turn out really cool. And anyway, the girls were stoning that wall today, starting the corners and starting to build up. So right up out of the water comes all this really cool stone. And they ended up leaving, but in the interim, I've caught this guy's eye a couple times, like he wants to say something from a distance, or he wants to whatever. Well, the girls leave, and I'm still there, and I'm doing a few things. The boat is to a point where we shot it raw in gunite, got the exact shape we wanted. We built it all up. Then we went over it with a cement finish that would give us the basis. We're going to eco-finish the whole thing, so it's going to be finished like a fiberglass boat, but it's technically made out of concrete. So I was getting all of that, and I was putting on all the adornments. We'd taken off of a boat the railing that goes from the bow to the back of the boat, and the glass windows, and I was kind of adjusting those to make sure that they're going to work. And here comes this homeowner, and I look up, and there he is. And he says something about, that's really cool. So we struck up a conversation. He had a pool built by another local builder to him, which I know very well. And he said, the pool, and people just want to talk. They just want to talk about their stuff. And I can see the pool clearly in terms of what it is. And he tells me who built the pool, and then he says, the only problem that I have is once the pool is done, it's like that company just doesn't have the ability to take care of or service or whatever their customers. And I said, I completely understand. I know the company, and I acknowledge that I knew who they were. They're a good builder. They're all of that. I said, we come from the background of being a volume builder. And it's very difficult when you're building volumes of pools to produce any really significant good service to follow up. You just, when you're running that fast, it's hard because every single year you're adding a mountain more of customers that you have to take care of. And I said, we've come from that life. We do this now. We do one at a time. We do individual. We do custom. He was asking the name of the company and all of that stuff. And he goes, you have a lot of women on the crew, don't you? And then he mentioned that. Then he mentioned, whose puppy was that? And, because I made comment that he throws a ball to his dog every day because it needs to run. And my dog is jealous because she's there watching, She'll get her tail way up in the air and she'll watch this dog chase the ball. And I said, yeah. And then he mentioned the puppies and they're so cute. And I said, yeah, those are her puppies. And we've kept them all in the family and, whatever. And it was just kind of an interesting interaction. And I said, well, here's what we're doing. And I showed him. And he goes, you guys have put a lot of work into this. He goes, you guys work really hard doing what you do. And I said, well, this is what we do. And we've come from a volume builder to do only this stuff that's really satisfying. And if someone wants something crazy or something completely different, let's do a boat. Let's do whatever. And he just thought that was really cool. And it was kind of one of those unique and interesting, it was a perfect opportunity for me to build the business and get some more service work. I didn't. I sort of let it be what it would be. But certainly he's looking for someone that can take care of his pool. And maybe by the time we finish and all of that, we can introduce ourselves a little bit more. But we introduced ourselves by name and everything else, and kind of moved on from that. And it was just kind of one of those interesting, cool experiences. Not earth-shattering, world-changing anything, but it was one of those people recognizing you and recognizing this female crew. And back to that, I had said, it's pretty difficult to find boys that want to work these days. And he goes, I own a restaurant. Boy, I know it's hard to find people to work. It was really kind of interesting. And here is this, it's crazy cool because it's unique. This boat on the side of a pool. Is it by itself, if you took it out of the environment, is anything special? Other than the fact that it looks like a freaking boat and it's made out of concrete, if you remove that fact, no. But the fact that it was shot out of concrete by me and a bunch of girls, as silly as that sounds, in our world, it's, you gotta be manly and you gotta be and you gotta whatever, trim and cut, and men dramatize this work as so detailed. Well, no, it's hard physical labor. The girls are up for the hard physical labor, but then once you get past the hard physical labor, it's just detail. And the girls are sensational with detail. And that's a whole lesson for me that I've learned, is that if you want details done right, give it to girls, don't give it to boys. Because, they just continue to perform in astounding ways. And when you look at that, by the time we're done with this, to think that it's made out of concrete, that's going to be an insane thought. Right now, because it still looks like concrete, it's still gray and concrete colored, but 80% of it is covered with a coating finish, so it doesn't look like raw gunite anymore. But by the time all that is done and all the adornments that we've taken off of our subject boat and put on there, it's just going to be one of those jaw droppers again, like, how are we going to outdo ourselves now? It's not intricately complex in terms of some of the crazy crap we've built, but it's simple but extremely difficult to pull off. And Karen had mentioned yesterday, she said, she just made a comment about how getting it proportional and getting it to the right shape. When you think about you're designing 3-dimension. So we have this idea of a boat. Now, the difficult part of designing this idea of a boat is it hanging off the deep end of the pool. So it's not like you have a flat spot to work at. Instead, you have this already contoured shape of a pool that becomes part of the boat. And the really cool part of this project to me, I mean, no one else can get excited about it but me, is that beam of the, and it was by design because I had to work on that, but the beam of the pool became the seat of the boat. So when you're sitting on that side, as much as you may or may not understand it, that concrete that you're sitting on was actually the shot beam of the wall of the pool. And it's just those details, working all of those out, and then getting it proportional to work. And what we had to do is, I wanted to make it wide enough so that it's, because it's a sitting area, it's designed, and maybe we'll even figure out how to put an umbrella or something over it, but I had to make it wide enough so it wouldn't feel too, the last thing we want to do is have this be like this little dinky boat. So what happened was, I didn't have the length, so I had to squish it down, but make it wide enough. So up close, it's huge, it's awesome. When you step back, it feels short and squat, which is really interesting. But when you're in it, it's sensational. We did the whole thing, the steering wheel, you can turn, it's got all the gauges in it. I think about this more and more and more, how important it is for me to impress why it's important that I do lighting, is each one of those gauges could have been lit up. If there was a lighting package included in this project, the lights would come on, and the oil gauge, and the fuel gauge, and the speedometer would light up. Because they were designed for that. But I didn't do any of that because part of this, there wasn't a lighting package involved. I'm just thinking about there's a light on the bow, there's a light on the back, there's all that. But all these individual gauges could have had lights in them, and it's kind of, I'm ultimately going to talk them into doing lighting because we have to make this cool. What we did is that was part of the design. Well, now we decided we're going to do a dock on the edge. And the first portion of the patio of concrete, we're going to pour and stamp with bluestone release to make it blue like water. So when you're walking up to this area, there'll be a section of the concrete that's kind of a blue color, and so it's neat. It's cool. The idea is, how do we push ourselves to be better each and every day? And I think this is a good example because here now, we did it. We shot it all ourselves. We carved it, trimmed it, whatever ourselves. There's nobody else involved anymore. And that's huge when you think of everything we've pulled off in the past was with the help of someone else. This project, we learned if we could do this, we can do anything. Me and a bunch of girls, so it's really, really cool. But anyway. So what do you got? I went on for a good bazillion minutes there but it was specific to that stuff.
Yeah, it's good. It's good hearing you fired up about this project and all of the things going on in it. So
you know what else I really like? This was a customer that that were perfectly fine. If you look at a perfectly fine customer, have all the credentials, have all the whatever, and yet I think I was challenged with, do I have the skill set from their perspective, do I have the skill set to produce what they were hoping for? Because remember when he called in, he said, I want you to build my backyard dream adventure or something, which, yeah. I mean, woo, if there could be like an aha moment, would be a customer saying that. And then being able to actually produce. Because when I went back to them, I met them, we talked, they said they talked to a bunch of companies that really didn't have a vision for anything interesting, and I went back to them and I have this drawing design. I think I had like 3 designs for them because I got excited about the potential, and one of them was this boat thing, and I'd done a model of the boat. And I remember them looking at each other going, wow, didn't see this one coming. Because everyone else had gone in there, I don't know how many people they'd actually talked to versus sort of just interviewed over the phone. But think about what most people would do. It would be this, well, let's try to figure out a shape, or I'll get my designer, and if you ever get the call that I'll get my designer, it's going to be just another guy that draws just the exact same pools. There's a few guys in our market that draw a lot of the pools for people, and they are the same boring snoozer custom pools. And that's what these people had seen, and something wasn't resonating with them. Then I came in with this boat idea, and they loved the boat idea. The only thing was we switched it. We put it on a different side of the waterfall to change some of the stuff there. And I think ultimately this is going to be a sensational project in terms of a finish, a wow moment. If they want to wow people with what is in their backyard, this will wow people from here to the end of the time, because no one has seen anything like this.
Yeah, for sure.
Beyond, because the building, the waterfall is a building, the sitting area is a boat. They still have their raised spa, which is going to be all stone. It's going to be gorgeously beautiful in and of itself, which would be the focal point of every other pool. And that is just like secondary to this.
Massive backdrop.
Yeah, the backdrop. You know, and once they landscape out the rest of it and kind of hide all of the view, it's going to be spectacular from the position they're at.
So this pool is a little bit different than our signature style because you were willing to do it in gunite. Let's talk about why this one and why gunite.
Well, here's what's really interesting about that. I never even proposed hybrid. It never came up. When we met with them, number one, I liked what he had said when he said, you're the guy to build my backyard adventure for my family. I like that. His expectation was gunite. Now, granted, I could have said, well, you know, we could do this, we could do that, you know, here's another opportunity. Instead, and I know you and I had that conversation, because here's this opportunity. If we didn't have eco finish, if we didn't have a way to finish off the pool other than pebble or hydrazo or the normal gunite things, I would have automatically pushed them to hydrazo. But knowing that we have this fabulous product in eco finish that we can finish off the pool the way we want it to be, it was too much of a stretch to try to fight him and go, no, here's what you want instead. And I remember having that conversation with you going, you know, I think I just want to do a gunite pool. Because, you know, we've had the opportunity to do hundreds of gunite pools that we've said no to. But this was one because of what he said, because of what it was about, because I had this idea. When I went to them with the design, that could have easily been a hybrid pool. I wouldn't have had to change not one thing from a design standpoint, and we could have built that as a hybrid. But I intentionally didn't even try to go, well, let's do this instead. It was just going to be gunite, and I think because I wanted to try what I was thinking in my head in a gunite pool. And here's the blessing in that. I had this struggle as to who to hire to shoot the gunite. Now granted, we do most stuff in-house. We excavated the pool. We tied all of the steel, and this is a massive undertaking to tie steel. It's not your typical pool in any way, shape, or form. There's seats everywhere. There's benches everywhere. There's a bar area that's going to have seats coming out of it. There's this whole grotto. There's the boat. There's the sun shelf. There's the hot tub. All of that had to be tied, and we're the people to do it. And the net result was we tied this entire thing, and we're going to hire a shotcrete company that's going to shoot and place the concrete for us, knowing that we have a pump, but not comfortable with that massive. I mean, you know, the shell of the pool is 80 yards of concrete, pretty hardcore. Well, we shot 64 the first day. Of course, it's all of us involved with a shotcrete company, and then he refused to come back the second day because he had something else to do. And the net result was there's 16 yards that still have to get placed. We still have to shoot that spa. We still have to finish up a couple other spots and a hole in the floor. And would 3 days really hurt if we waited 3 days for him to come back? Probably not so much. But our crew said, no, let's do it. We'll do it ourselves. We'll shotcrete. Now, we've played with shotcrete. We've done a little bit of shotcrete before. But most of what we've done is just pump to fill spaces and whatever. And we shot the rest of the pool, our crew. And what that did was said, we can do this. If it's a spa or a sun shelf or a grotto or a waterfall or anything, we can shoot ourselves. Well, that sort of set into motion, well, let's shoot this whole boat ourselves. Let's shoot this whole grotto ourselves. Let's create this whole thing ourselves. And how many shoots later, and here we are, we have this whole raw product done. And again, hidden in some of those moments of anxious anxiety are blessings. And the blessing is we had the tools, we had the know-how. We didn't have everything quite put together right, and that's something I figured out after. It's kind of one of those, how would you say, synchronicity-ish type of moments. I had bought at an online auction an air vibrator that is supposed to be used when you're pouring like poured walls and stuff. You can't just pump the concrete in there. You got to run a vibrator in as well to get the air bubbles, so you don't trap air bubbles and have all these holes in the wall. And you run this air vibrator, and it vibrates real fast and rough all throughout these walls. That gets rid of the air bubbles. Well, I bought that. It had been sitting in the barn for a couple years. We didn't have a compressor big enough to run it. Well, this year we bought this old compressor that's, you know, really big and powerful. And here was this perfect opportunity to use the pump that we were using for pumping concrete to shotcrete. But what the experts recommend when you use that pump for shotcrete is to have an air vibrator on the rack, because you have a grate that allows the mud to fall through, and when you shotcrete, the mud has to be stiff. When you pump, you just wet it up and you blast it out. Well, here's this 2-year-old thing I bought in an auction because I knew eventually I would need it, and now we have a compressor that I can run a second line off of, and I take some tie wire and I strap that thing to the top of the, and it solved every problem possible. Now we can run the mud as dry as we need to run it, and what happens is that vibrator shakes the grate so much that the mud has to fall through. And once it falls through, the pump has no problem pumping it. So we were able to turn it up, turn it down to whatever we want, and we solved all of those issues. The answers were all there, the confidence wasn't. Yeah. Because we'd never done it before. And the unknown is scary and hard. And not that I wasn't willing to try, but I couldn't see it until the decision was, we wait or we do it ourselves. Let's do it ourselves. And once that happened, everything changed.
You know, that's something just about our team that I think you and I are continually amazed and delighted by.
Yes.
Is the willingness for everybody on our team to do more work, harder work, and look forward to doing it because it means that we're accomplishing significant things. That is something that is growing, and for someone who's watching what we're doing, I think you can get a sense of that if you talk to our team, which we probably don't interview on video nearly enough. Everybody is game, and there's not anybody who says, oh, I don't want to have to do that, whether it's on the service side or if it's on the building side, or if it's even our weekly service team who gets back to the office and they're probably happy that they arrived before the storm hit, and I say there's stuff outside that has to get moved. And as it starts to downpour torrentially, they go out and they get it done. So every member of our team, and especially the girls that are working with you, Karen and Katie and Jessie, I have noticed this year, especially on this gunite pool time and time again, we can do it, we can handle that, let's plan that for tomorrow, no hesitation, and that is pretty astounding.
It is astounding.
It's also astounding, and I don't want to do it to necessarily make fun of a crew of men, but we do have a friend in the industry who had recently posted Gunite Day on one of their projects, and there are 12 grown men in a rectangle pool doing the shotcrete. And I want to do a picture of that with a picture of our shotcrete crew, which is Al and 3 girls. Mm-hmm. It's mind-boggling.
Well, what's interesting when I think about, you saying that, this particular pool, I dug it. Not we dug it, I dug it. I was involved, me and a couple girls tied the entire thing. It was a pretty intense when you look at what was
It's a
involved.
very large pool. It has a very large sun shelf. It has a love seat.
Everything,
It has a raised
everything,
spa. It has a
circular raised spa,
boat, and a
grotto, huge grotto. Yeah.
Like
all of those
huge
things.
grotto. Yeah.
I could have just hired that all out, which I don't even know how I would have explained to a gunning company how to do it, but I could have. But we believed enough that we could do it, and then let's hire this company to play shotcrete. He showed up with that day, him and one guy, and me and 3 girls, to shoot this entire pool. And our crew of girls were like, let's get it on, let's go, let's do it. He was like, oh, it was just a sense of, oh, it's going to be so much work. Let's just freaking do it, man. Let's just go. What could be the worst that can happen? We'll figure out if there's a cutoff point. Let's just go. And it's amazing because then they picked right back up the next day and said, we can do it. And then the next day, we can do it. And the next day, we can do it. And the next day, we can do it. And I remember the final shoot, the last day, so we shot the one, after the pool was done, we then shot one wall of the boat, so that I didn't want to shoot it all at once because I wanted to be able to match it. If you're in the midst of just placing concrete, do something wrong. It could have been wonky or misshapen. So I purposely did one side, and then I did the floor so that I would have a place to tie my steel to the second side. It's not holding water, so it's not like it matters how many shoots it takes. This is a dry seating area that's going to be decorated like a boat. So we got all that in, and then the final day where we're doing the final finish on the roof of the grotto, the final detail of the slide, and then the final detail of the bow of the boat. You know how like the front of a boat, typically there's like a bow on the front that, either it's hollow underneath or whatever, but this is going to be solid concrete. Well, Mark says, and Mark being our service guy goes, well, my load's kind of light tomorrow. Why don't I come out there? I can help you if need be. I'm like, well, come on out. There's plenty of stuff to do anyway, but I pretty much figured we got this. Me and my 3 girls doing shotcrete. And Mark came out there. He was there the entire time. And you know what Mark did? He troweled the equipment pad. Because the last thing we did was we pumped concrete, what was left, to do the equipment pad and the floor of the boat. And that was the extent of what he needed to do. And after about 20 minutes, he came over to me and he goes, hey, do you mind if I take off? I'm going to be gone this weekend and I need to get this stuff done. No, Mark, you're fine. And I think he was surprised, and yet not that surprised, that we have a system now. And the driver that day said, he pulled up. Which is an interesting story too. He pulled up and he goes, is this the pool that they're shooting the TV show at? I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, they're shooting one of those cable TV program shows. And I'm like, oh, Insane Pools? He goes, I don't know. I'm thinking that must be what it is. Maybe Lucas, who we've met and interacted with, was doing a show here. And I said, no, we're not doing a show here, but this pool's probably show worthy. And the driver goes, do you mind if I look at it? I'm like, no, not at all. Let's mix up the concrete and walk up there. And here's this boat just about shot and all of that stuff done. And he's like, wow, this is really cool. Mind if I take pictures when we're done today? No, go ahead, take pictures. And I was thinking how, talk about TV worthy, that is TV worthy. If we can build pools that shake up the expectation of what a pool could be for the rest of my career, that would be the impact that I would have on the industry. Is let's just not do what everybody does. That boat, the other part of this is that boat could have been the hot tub. And the customer had asked me about that. He goes, well, could we make the boat into a hot tub? That's like, we can, but I don't think we should. The boat needs to stand alone and then have a hot tub, and I think it was the right decision. And, there's Mark blown away by the fact that the girls, these petite little girls, kick ass. The driver going, I haven't seen men work as hard as you girls work. He didn't tell me that. He told them that. And so that was really cool to relay that afterwards. And then to realize, someone's shooting a show around here, which is fine, but it's a typical, what we've seen on everything. I'm sure it is.
You know what we have though? We have more YouTube footage, more YouTube time, and we've talked about a show time and time again.
Oh, yeah.
It would need to be a PBS, like this little
Ish,
house
yeah.
style kind of a thing. Low drama, high energy performance
Detail.
and
Yeah.
detail in what we're doing in our certain way. So, yeah, we film our YouTube.
And I'm good with that. I don't think that we need any public approval. We get all the approval and all the attaboy that we need in what we do to not need some outside, ooh, look what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I do think, though, that there's a segment of the population that wants to see this. Now, it's probably not as huge as a reality television genre of person that loves drama and loves the world's going to fall in.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a smaller percentage, and maybe it's a PBS crowd, like you said, that would just love to see what went into it, what was the mindset, what was the designing, what were the challenges, how did you fix them, how did you solve them, what was the process to get there, what was the final application, and what was the end result. And have the end result just stand for itself versus the drama and the woo reveal and let's just show the process, because there's a lot of really fun stuff. And it's boring and normal to me, but it's cool at the same token. I was thinking today, before the girls left the job, I said, "Hey, give me a hand here, Jesse." And we had we got that boat, that Sea Ray boat that I was gonna try to cast the side of, which was just too massive of a project. We had stripped it all the metal railing and all the everything that went on there, and we were fitting that onto the boat today because it's ready to get those adornments. And I was having her hold it down, and I was realizing this right here, this little bit of me just, the original rail is like really tall, and I just took it apart and I cut it off and I dropped it down so it would be more functional. Now the kids swimming along the side of the boat can reach up and grab the rail and all of that. I was thinking, that's what people could see. If people could see that, they go, well, I could do that for something else, or that makes sense. Instead of it's poof magic that stuff's created, instead show that process of how we take this cool piece of stainless steel bar that's already been pre-bent with these little things, and we use it to look like what it was originally used for, but now it's this railing that the kids can swim up to the boat, because the wall of the boat is about 16 inches tall, and they can grab onto the rail, pull themselves up, do whatever. But here's this opportunity to share how we arrived at that. And that's the kind of TV worthiness stuff that I would like to be known for, not the drama and the hype of the, woo, look what he created kind of a thing.
Very cool. A couple of thoughts based on that is, just for the sake of mentioning, one of the things that I've really enjoyed doing this past week is, past 2 weeks really, stopping in at some of our previous pools, delivering a couple things for homeowners and
Why do you do that?
kids to enjoy, because it makes us feel good.
Isn't that cool?
It's just yummy.
Keep be part of people's
just pop
lives.
in, and we do it because we love them, and that's why I do it. Like, I showed up at the pool where the puppies played, and the son was home, and I said, "Oh, and I have something for you guys." And he looked at me and he said, "Why do you keep bringing us stuff? Because you're awesome and we love you." And I had gone up to Pat and Gary's before as well, and Pat took a picture of what we brought. And seriously, it's
just stuff.
It's stuff. It's cute little towels and trinkets and whatever, and it's put together and it's hand delivered, and it shows that we care. And she took a picture of it and she put it on Facebook, and she said, "We hired them to build our pool 3 years ago, and just randomly they show up with this. Who does that?" And that just is such a yummy feeling. And unfortunately, one of her friends commented, "My pool guy just sends me a bill," or something like that. So we're just different because we do that. But when I've been out there, I've been able to take pictures of the pools, And we've talked before about cleaning up the pools. Like, we get done building and the homeowners start using them. There's always toys all over. Our pools are comfy couches, they are well loved, and they have stuff everywhere. So very rarely could we walk up to a pool and take what would make a good magazine photo shoot.
We would never be able to in a project that we built.
They are very hard to do. Always, we're fishing toys out of the pool, dripping water across the patio. Even if people know we're coming, there's always something. Well, dropping in at the pools, I took a bunch of pictures, and they are so vibrant and so full of life, even with the pool floaties everywhere and the patio furniture that's kind of strewn about, but they are so yummy. And I've been uploading some of those photos to our Facebook albums. And because the photos just gave me such a good energy jolt, I decided, which we hadn't done much of before, but the Facebook boost, just to give it a few dollars, paid advertising, to show it to more people than would see our page. And the results of a couple of boosts, maybe $40 worth over a week or two, has been crazy. The amount of people that are tagging other people in it or commenting, and there's so many more people that are seeing it, I think, that weren't aware that stuff this cool could be done with pools. So for the sake of any pool industry people who are listening, or any other industries for that matter, those Facebook boosts of kind of that real life stuff, because we've always had portfolios of our photos, and the new photos are going into those old portfolios that typically don't have any people in them, and they're, you know, the patio furniture is placed just right, and everything is great, and there's close-ups of details. But then there's just some when the landscaping has come in after a year or two and it's full and lush and just beautiful, beautiful stuff. The other thing that I wanted to touch on as well is I was watching, probably it was in Facebook, there was a pool builder from Pennsylvania that was talking, the Pittsburgh area, that was talking about pools that he builds. And he builds very interesting pools with swim-up bars and nice attention to detail, probably a lot different in style than the way we do it, but still very beautiful work. And the one sentence that he said that really stuck out to me and made me sad was, the experience for our homeowner starts when their pool is finished and they get to enjoy it. The experience for our homeowner starts
the day they meet us
the
online.
Day they make that phone call, visit our website,
before, yeah,
or
the day that they find
us
online and they spend that time with us, which, again, I know we've gone really long, but you know, we haven't talked enough about it. I met with a customer last week who, number one, made a bunch of comments about, kind of can't believe that I'm in your backyard, because he'd seen me online so much. But our relationship started the minute they clicked play. And more importantly, the minute they clicked play again, and then again, and then again. Because then he mentioned Penny and videos and all those different things. That's the relationship. That's the yummy part. So the guy in Pittsburgh is missing it. When we talk about TV shows, it's about from the day that they hit play the first time to the day that we're done, which is never.
But that, even when we're done building the pool,
we're never done.
We randomly come back. I was at the Zen and Fabulous pool where you had found they loved celebrating Fridays at this pool. When we were building it,
they called it Shots Fridays.
Mm-hmm. Every Friday, it's Shots Friday for the team and for the homeowner, and it was great. And you found a sign that said Fridays, and
it was from TGI Fridays.
Massively big and super cool. And I know it.
Stained glass window.
You brought it there, you dropped it off, didn't know what was going to happen with it. Well, the homeowner mounted it on the side of the house, right behind the pool. It is stunning and fabulous. So any of those, they're little things, and it just means I thought about you again. Or dropping off the gifts, I just thought about you and wanted to acknowledge that. It's an acknowledgement of that relationship. And for that, right, from the time they quit play until the time they they moved from the house, but even then we're not done, because I know one couple in particular that we built for a number of years ago sold that house, moved to a different state, and are still following us on Instagram, and they're still alive in the videos that they did with us as well. So they're just super yummy. So it's never over. We're in it really forever.
I stopped at a flea market today, and I almost bought something for that couple. TGI Friday, the Shots Friday sign, thinking I should get this for them, and I didn't. But because it wasn't right, it wasn't the right price, it wasn't, it just didn't, it didn't make sense. But I thought of them. Out of all the customers we have, I thought about them again, and thought this is something that just needs to show up. I couldn't tell you until I really think hard about that. I can't tell you what it was. It was something specific to them that had it either been a little bit better or the price or something, I would have just automatically bought it, put it in the truck, and it would have showed up in their yard at some point.
Well, you do still have something else that'll show
I
up
do
in
have
your
something else that's already going to go there anyway, and I do know what it was. On the back of this old pickup truck were sitting 2 wooden carved tiki poles. Remember, they love tikis. We carved the tikis into their thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I need to buy them for those. The guy wasn't in his booth. Mm-hmm. So I didn't buy them because I had no idea what he wanted. Someone had carved them out of, like, I don't know, must have been fence posts or something. And there were these 2 tiki god things. Yeah.
Also, we could...
I would have.
We don't have nearly enough on our walls.
Again, there's part of it is convenience, because I do all of this while I'm working. For every moment that I'm away from work, and I'm looking for stuff, I'm away from work, and so I'm always playing that balance. Well, if the guy had been in the booth and I'd been able to say how much, I don't think it would have mattered how much. It would have been pull out some cash and buy them, because they screamed, number one, that customer, but number 2, if not the customer, us. It was really cool, but they were really, really cool. I wish the guy had been in the booth. By the time then I got through the rest of the flea market, and I just bought a few little things. I'd kind of forgotten to go back and look, and shame on me, but I could go back tomorrow and buy them, I suppose. That's what I'll do. I'm heading that way in the morning. I'll buy them in the morning if they're still there. Because you're right, they would still be really cool to just show up in their yard or show up here. And again, it doesn't matter. The money doesn't matter. That's the funny thing, is the money doesn't matter. Because I always end up having money in my pocket. So why not do something constructively cool with it? Because if you call it karma, if you call it whatever, it just always flipping works out.
It always does.
Always does. And why not love on people beyond anything they could have imagined being loved on? Which reminds me of my last story, and we're going to be done. I'm on the way home tonight, and it's been blistering hot. 91 degrees is hot here. It's not hot in the rest of the country. I know, we're wusses. But when we get consistently these hot days,
it's not dry heat though. To be fair,
it's pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy.
Moist.
You're soaking by the time you step out of your vehicle. But anyway, worked all day doing this pool, and it's pretty intense and stuff, and working on the boat. And I stopped at Speedway on the way back to get a Slurpee and a bunch of waters. They had this buy 2 get 1 free of Powerades, and so I bought them. And I'm standing there, got all my stuff, and a guy's waiting there, and he's supposed to go next. I'm like, go ahead, you're next. He goes, no, you go. I see you got all the stuff. I'm like, no, really, I can hold this for a minute. He goes, no, you do it. So I put my stuff up there, and he sees my Slurpee, and he goes, yeah, I want me one of those. So he walked the other direction to get one, and I told her, put it on my bill. And she looks over my shoulder, yeah, he's getting the same size you're getting, whatever. So she just put it on my bill. And then I gathered my stuff and walked out and drove out as quickly as I could, because I didn't want to see him. Because it wasn't about that, but it's that idea that if you have money in your pocket and you take care of people, he had done me a huge service by letting me go first. The least I could do was buy him a 99-cent Slurpee, And yet most people won't do that out of some sense of being deserving or being owed, or I don't know
Well,
what it
after
is.
they listen to you, perhaps they will.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah.
And I'm stepping on old Bobby down here. He's laying right
Oh,
beneath me here,
Bobby's
so he's as relaxed as could be.
All
So,
right. Well, on that
Anyway,
note,
I think that's a good place to stop.
we'll talk to you next time.